They're just letting him rot, but Mr. O'Donnell makes what, $280,000 a year?
$280,000
to manage this thing, and yet we got guys that put their necks on the line in Vietnam and Iraq, going way back, and they're sleeping homeless on concrete in downtown LA.
You know, Skid Row, if you were to go in there, just like you
I did. It doesn't smell
it'll tear
good.
your heart out. Tear your heart out. And you say, how can we fix this? How can we? Now here you can see the VA police are coming in. They're at the front gate. In fact, that's a public park now. And I don't know if you can see there was a dog running loose. Dogs are welcome on there, but not veterans.
Dogs are welcome on the VA property donated by two families named what and what?
Senator John P. Jones and Arcadia DeBaker.
And Arcadia DeBaker donated this land so there would never be homeless vets. And they were thinking at that time, in 1888, the Civil War vets were getting old and elderly. And I think it was in the 1880s, the Wobblies did a march, took over trains to go to Washington to force the Congress to do something for the vets because they'd broken all their promises, just as they did to the World War I and World War II vets.
That's it. It's endless.
And until the veterans stand up and say, we aren't going to take it anymore, and now we're going to do something, we're going to come to Washington, we're going to take over your office. It's not going to be, the Icelandic people don't indulge in meaningless wars like America does.
There they are leaving.
Yeah, there they are, kicking up the dust, driving over.
Yeah, they have about 25 of our flags in what they call the evidence storage room over at the VA police headquarters.
Have you sent them a rental bill? Say we're charging you $50 a month for keeping each flag, and just start running up their bill?
My interest is right now is to try to liberate those flags because they are a living thing. If you read the U.S. flag code, the American flag represents a living country, therefore it's a living thing. So they have, now I don't know if they're giving them any 3 meals a day and whatever like they do with the rest of prisoners, but our American flag is imprisoned. And by the way, on Memorial Day, I had two, because they confiscated all my big flags, and I had 2 small flags like you saw a little bit ago there, and they came out on Memorial Day and confiscated. And the police officer, there's a young officer named Garza, Officer Garza, and this man is out of control. I've filed formal complaints against him in the past, and they continue to send him out because they know he's trying to badger me to react or something, because that's what they want to get me, is a resisting arrest, and I'm a peaceful demonstrator. We follow Dr. King and Gandhi's peaceful and nonviolence, and it's one of the things that's very troubling about this officer is that not only did he tell me to turn my camera off, which is illegal, but I was on that front plaza and he ordered me off of that plaza, which is a public forum. We've been out there for 8 years. And so this officer, he claims to be the officer of the year. And quite frankly, if he's the officer of the year, they must be operating under the Gestapo or Stalin police manuals, because this individual is out of control. I've filed formal complaints against him to the secretary and the chief of police, and they continue to send him out to try to harass and whatever. But yeah, I'm worried. Quite frankly,
that glorious individual's name is who?
Garza. It's R. Garza. I don't know his first name, but that's all they put on the citation.
Well, R. Garza, you just became famous as Cop Schmuck of the Year.
You're kind.
And I'm trying to be polite. And I come from a generation and several generations of law enforcement. My great-grandfather was an elected sheriff. His brother was a deputy sheriff and then the sheriff. And many of my cousins are in the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. But you, officer, you earn the title of Schmuck Cop of the Year. And I wouldn't say that alone. Anybody that harasses a veteran for putting out a flag because he sued you, not you personally, officer, but the VA, and he won. I don't think we stressed it enough. This veteran here, he won. He won. Judge Otero.
Yeah, the ACLU filed the lawsuit, and it was on behalf of homeless veterans and all, but we won 2 lawsuits, one back in 2009 when they were citing me for hanging the American flag. We won that one, and so we've got 2 judgments against them, but it's, they keep coming back, and like I said, this Officer Garza is, he's a dangerous man. I've told him, I said, I do fear for my life, never have until now with this individual, because he's out of control, and I think he's got a very serious agenda, and it's not a nice one.
Yeah, he's probably hired because he went to the same school of schmuckhood that the 2 cops that murdered that homeless man,
There he
Kelly
is, right
Thomas.
there. There's Garza right there.
Oh, is that Garza on the right
is.
there?
Look at that performance right there. He came up on a bicycle, and look at the things
Yeah,
on the.
he's ready to tackle somebody.
Yeah. He's. I don't know what he's doing. He looks like he's performing, getting ready for Dancing with the Stars. I don't know. It's quite, so.
You know,
but,
I think the problem is we need to get veterans, of course not our age, I'm 71, he's 74, but the young veterans need to take positions as district attorneys, as judges. Get some people with common sense into these offices, get them in charge of the police department, you know, not the PTSD vets that are in orbit, but those that came through intact, you know, and make sure that the cops are not doing drugs. You know, yeah, he's showing you the citation he wants you to sign.
Yeah, they've already, look how he hit the hang it, holding the flag, wadded up.
Yeah.
Not folded, but just
Not
wadded
folded,
up.
wadded up.
Yep.
Well,
This is
until we
Garza.
get veterans into positions, I don't see things are going to change. Because if you
By
have
the way, here's Garza coming out on the plaza. The only VA police officer to come out on the plaza, drive his car. Most of them, I'm going to say this, most of them have been very civil, been very respectful. They admit they're just following orders. Here he is, look at walking all the way out. We're on the sidewalk. He's intervening right now to our Sunday rally, trying to be a good guy, but he has got a malicious mission in mind.
Well, he shook your hand or somebody's.
Yeah, that's the way they start it, and then they next thing they're handing you a citation, and they come out and they ask you if that's you hung that flag. And yes, I did. Will you take it down? No, I won't. I won't surrender it to you or anybody. Well, we're going to have to take it. Well, then go ahead and take it. But you're not. I'm not surrendering my flag. But he gets hostile about it. I was real disappointed. Henderson was a decent cop until this past week. He sided with Garza. So there's something coming up. After the U.S. attorneys dropped the 12 citations, rightfully so, now they're back and they've issued 2 more, and both of them were under hostile circumstances.
Yeah, that is, this is said here. So back in '88, the 2 people was Senator Jones,
Senator John P. Jones,
Senator John P. Jones, and the other
Arcadia DeBaker.
Arcadia DeBaker. I don't even know if they were veterans, but they donated this land, which wasn't very valuable at that time. They built this first home by what, 1894?
It was in the early, probably about 1892 when it was first finished, and veterans helped build it. Many of them had I think sent them across by train to San Francisco, and several thousand marched all the way down to Southern California. Remarkable.
They marched from San Francisco to Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's the history that what I know. That was the Grand Army of the Republic, and they were like the first veterans organization, like you might consider the American Legion or something. But these were upstanding individuals like you cannot believe. They got a lot of our presidents elected during that period. They were a phenomenal force, and we need to unify like that. Right now, when you look at the American Legion, VFW, and they only represent maybe 15% of all of the members. There's a huge, yes, huge. It's a sleeping giant. We need to awaken that.
We need to get the veterans to get active and take the county offices, the county judgeships, and restore common sense, because we're being bullied and run by people who have bad motives, who only like Nazi soldiers know how to follow orders. Achtung, Achtung, machen Sie, schnell, herausgehen. You know, there's a very thin line between following orders and following illegal orders.
There you go.
And when police officers don't know they're doing something wrong and they just go ahead, it makes me think of Nazi Germany, and I don't want to dwell on it, but if you go back and look in 1938, the April issue of a now defunct magazine called the Time magazine. Time magazine. There was Adolf Hitler on the front cover of an American magazine. Like he's the man of the year. Adolf Hitler on an American magazine. That just shows you how the American bank gangsters, which I call them the Nazi bank gangsters, which have devolved into the Union Bank. There was the Harriman brothers, Brown brothers, and I'm not going to go into that tonight because I just want to focus on the VA thing, but these people had enough influence to put Hitler on the front page of Time magazine in 1938. Like he's a great guy. And I need to remind you, because most of you watching have not taken the time to look up General Smedley Butler's filmed comment that's on YouTube now. It was originally, I think, put on regular film that they had back in the 30s. Now it's on YouTube, where he tells you up front, hey, shh, shh, FDR, shh, listen to me, hey, these banker guys want me to overthrow you. They want me, General Smedley Butler, twice decorated U.S. Marine General, to lead an army of veterans from World War I and overthrow you, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And Roosevelt went like, oh, well, you know, and just didn't have the bankers arrested. These are the same bankers that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush, carried satchels, leather satchels stuffed with cash from New York City to Germany and hand-delivered it to Adolf Hitler so he could buy boots and brown shirts and black shirts for his gangs, his organized gangs that went around terrorizing Jews, gypsies, and other people. Yes, people, money from America paid for those brown shirts, black shirts, and boots and Hitler's new house, because up to that moment he was living in a second-floor flat. Okay. I went off on the edge here a little bit. So what they were trying to do is create a dictatorship in Germany, which they did under Hitler, and they wanted the dictatorship in America under General Smedley Butler. But to his credit, and they don't teach about General Butler in public fool schools, they don't want you to know this Marine had enough patriotism to resist the opportunity to be an absolute dictator in America. He resisted that. And he blew the whistle on him. He was like among the first whistleblowers. So with that all said, you know, I hope some of you will contact Mr. Rosebrock here at his email. We flashed it up on the screen. It'll be up on the screen again. And contact them. We need to have, you know, a few thousand veterans show up there in L.A. Not one or two. And by the way, didn't you have a Christian pastor, a Baptist pastor, show up and help you one day?
Yes, Dr. Wiley Drake, Vietnam War veteran, Pastor Drake came up. Been out there from our first rally. Ted Hayes, Mr. Patriot's been there. Dr. Drake, a Baptist minister, came out, and he had a flag, and on the top of it, it says, "In God we trust." Now that's our national motto. The American flag is our emblem of, you know, the Republic. It stands for freedom and justice for all. And they confiscated his flag and incited him as well, and they dismissed his in federal court also. But a pastor Here's a man that comes up and he's about as loyal as you can get as an American, and just a true blue individual. And it was really a very sad situation. And we've got a photo with Ted Hayes, Mr. Patriot, in his, it's symbolic of the Uncle Sam uniform, but it's Mr. Patriot. And he had a 13-star flag up. They took that down. We had an 84-year-old Dave Colmer, 84-year-old, 70% disabled, Korean, Vietnam War veteran, Marine. Dave's just this upstanding, I call him Mr. Veteran. And they confiscated his flag, cited him, and then dismissed it in court. It's the harassment you have to go through and the humiliation of these people at that corner. You're standing there, and VA police are arresting us while cars are passing by, and they may think that they're humiliating. No, you're taking a cheap shot at the American flag. You're disgusting, and I've told you that. I've tried to be respectful to you police officers. Many of you are veterans. You know better, and just as Williams indicated, it's Nazism. You're following orders. You admit it. I question you. I say, why do you come out there? You're a veteran. You say, well, we're just following orders. And I tell you that, go home, read the Nuremberg trial. That's how it all started. And so if you want to follow that path, fine. I've asked them to go collectively take their guns and their badges, lay them on the desk of the executive director and say, we're not doing your dirty work anymore. And they say, well, we got families to feed while I pay their bills. And I said, well, you're going to pay my legal bills because I got to find legal support. That's the issue that we're really dealing with, these VA police right now. And we need legal counsel. I've talked to legal representation. This takes a special person, not just somebody, anybody. It's got to be somebody. We prefer a veteran who's a true patriot and loves this country and loves the flag that it stands for and despises corruption.
We need a real advocate, not just an attorney member of the British Accreditation Registry. We need a real advocate to step in here, because there are how many thousand, Robert? How many thousand homeless vets are there in just LA?
20,000.
20,000 homeless vets. 20,000 homeless vets that are counted. We don't know how many there. That's just Los Angeles. We don't know how many are in San Francisco and Fresno. How many are sitting in jails simply for violating vagrancy laws? Because they have no place to go. And that's why we opened the show today. By the way, welcome to the show. If you just tuned in at 7:30, my apologies. There was no warning. We're going to start doing the live show on Friday beginning at 7 p.m., not 7:30. So you may have missed the first half hour, but you'll catch it on the rerun. With me here today, my guest is Robert Rosebrock, an Army veteran who was stationed in Hawaii. I'm also an Army veteran who was stationed in between Quy Nhon and An Khê in a little nowhere place in Vietnam. They got shelled and hit and shot up regularly. Not me personally, but my base. I don't usually talk about this, but I spent several days in a MASH hospital in Quy Nhon and went back to active duty. I could have taken the free ride back to Hawaii and finished the war easy, but I went back on duty. I wasn't thinking too smart in those days. I was a young guy. I was only 22 or 23. Had it to do over, I might have made a different decision. But the point is, we put our lives on the line. And everybody that joins the American military, or any military, literally puts their life on the line, because you never know what idiot who never served in the military is going to send you into a horrible situation that we shouldn't even be in. And if you've watched my show, my opinion is every war was created to make bankers rich. And you're thinking, oh, how could that be? It's real simple. It's really simple. It runs up the national debt because they won't tax you hard enough to pay for the war in real time. So they just borrow from the Federal Reserve, which is created to do nothing but burden you all, even you non-veterans, burden you with burdensome federal and state taxes. And then you got to pay for all the damaged veterans that lose an arm, lose a leg, have PTSD. The guy that put all the, Mr. Swinson, he installed all the rides at Neverland for Michael Jackson some 25, now it's 26 years ago he started. He's 100% PTSD, that's his rating, 100%. And I tried to get him on this show, and it's very difficult to deal with somebody that's got 100% PTSD. And yet he managed to kind of function. He sort of functions. And I have a lot of photographs of him and the ordeal he went through last summer, but we're not going to talk about that today. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump today, in a live feed somebody sent me, I'm not going to show it to you all of it, but I got a little clip of it. He said he's going to help the veterans. He said, I thought I heard him say, he sent a check for $100,000 to one veteran, for $150,000 to another veteran, for $1.1 million to another. I thought I heard him say that in his live stream today. And what was interesting, and this show is not about politics today, but I don't see Hillary saying she's going to do anything for the vets. I don't hear Bernie saying he's going to do anything for the vets. I don't hear Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Party candidate out of wherever, New Mexico, saying he's going to do anything for the vets. And I wonder where America would be if all the vets in World War I or World War II just laid their guns down and said, we're not going to fight for America. We're just not going to do it. Send the politicians over. Hey, that's a good idea. Send Obama over to the wars. He's got 3 wars going, one in Mali, in a landlocked country in North Africa. Send Obama over as a private, first class. Give him a gun and put him out at the what we call in the grunts call the point. We call it the point. Give him the point. That's the guy who's supposed to see the enemy first, and he's usually the first guy that catches a bullet between the eyes. Then see how Obama feels about having 3 wars. After he's taken one right between the eyes, I think his opinion will change drastically about how necessary it is for America to be in a war most of you don't even know we're in. And the French and I are in it together. Not I, but our country. The French have gone back into this. Why? Because they got gold, they got uranium, and they're run by 7 or 8 different tribal warlords. These are not our wars, people. They never were. Anyway,
You know, I'd just like
let's
to...
run a little shot of Donald Trump here.
Sure.
Well, this is not about politics today, but if I'm not voting for any of them, not even the libertarian Gary Trump, but I just give you a shot of his live feed. He started doing live feed to internet because he figured out nobody's paying attention to the major networks anymore. So this is what he put out today. Just a little clip of it.
And it's a disgrace, okay? Let me tell you, while we're on the subject, we are going to bring jobs back to this country. We need our jobs. We're going to make it very expensive for companies to fire everybody and leave. You know, your area has lost 1 in 3 manufacturing jobs over a fairly short period of time. That's a lot of manufacturing jobs. Your crime rate is way the hell up. You know that. I mean, I have these statistics. By the way, they're that way all over the place. When I go to Pennsylvania, we won that in a landslide. When I go to Connecticut, landslide. Maryland, landslide. Rhode Island, landslide. Delaware, landslide. The week before that, we had New York, super landslide. You know what's nice? They know me in New York. They know me. We had 3 people running. I got 62% won everything. I mean, I won so much, people couldn't even believe it. Way, way above even projections. I knew I was going to win. But isn't it nice, even for you, with the people that know me the best, give me a tremendous vote of confidence, and we won it bigly. And then you have these guys like Charles Krauthammer. Donald Trump is not at 50%. I got like 12 people running against me in some of these states, right? Ever notice that? Donald Trump. Here's a guy, Krauthammer. He would say, oh, so much. Mr. Trump will not run. This is the finest field of talent ever assembled in the history of the Republican Party. That was before I ran. I listened to Krauthammer say it's the finest group of talent ever assembled in the history of the Republican Party. I looked at my wife, I said, you know, maybe I shouldn't run. Except Krauthammer doesn't know what he's talking about. He's another one. He's overpaid. He's the one, you know, he was the big one for the war. Go into the war. Go into Iraq. Fight like hell. Lose thousands of lives. Spend $2 trillion. Spend $2 trillion. You know, we got nothing. You know what we did? We gave Iraq to Iran. And I've been against it. But with that being said, we're going to build our military so powerful, so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. Our military is depleted. Did you see those things on Fox and CNN where they had a sort of documentary on what's going on with our flyers, right? We have these great airmen. And what's going on with our equipment? Where one of the airmen said, oh, I used to be so proud. Now what they do for our fighters, our F-16s or F-18s, they have the fighters. They don't have parts. So they go into a plane graveyard. You know, that's where they dump the old planes. And they're stealing parts for our fighter jets. And they're stealing parts from museums where they show the fighter jets. They're going in and they're taking parts because they want to be able to continue to fly. This is the United States. Can you imagine them doing that? And then they spoke to these young pilots, these great guys, and they said, well, what do you think? Well, they're leaving. They're leaving. As soon as their term is up, they're leaving. And they say how sad it is. And they remember how great it was like 15 years ago when he started. This is the United States, folks, and we're never going to be doing that kind of thing again if I'm president. I tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. So we have a lot of things to do, and we're going to do things the right way. Hillary Clinton is not a talented person. She's not a natural. She wasn't meant for this job. She's greedy. She's greedy as hell. And that's, I think, the reason she wants it. But she doesn't have the talent for the job. She's not a natural for the job. And she's just not a natural talent. And honestly, folks, look, beyond me, if you choose Hillary Clinton, this country is going to die. It's going to die. She's not respected by other countries. When she goes, she won't ask. As an example, when I said, Japan, look, you know, we may have to walk, but Japan, you got to pay up. You got to pay up. They're going to like me. They're going to pay up. And if they don't pay up, we have to walk. And you know what? They're going to have to defend themselves. That's okay. Okay? Now, I never said nukes. What I'm saying is they're going to have to defend themselves. You know, right now, we have to defend them from North Korea. If anything happens, we have to defend them. You know, though, and I say it to everybody, we defend them, but if something happens with us, we get attacked, Japan doesn't have to help us. Now think of it, that's our deal, Sergeant Bergdahl. We get Bergdahl, they get 5 of the greatest killers that they have. They've been after him for 9 years. I call him the 5-for-1 president. And that's the same thing with the Iran deal. We gave him $150 billion, and that's the only time we got our prisoners back. We shouldn't have even started a negotiation until we got those prisoners back. And not once is this stiff, he's a total stiff. John Kerry, not once did he get up from the bargaining table and say, sorry folks, you take care of yourselves, leave the room, double up the sanctions, they would have called you within 24 hours. He gave up every single point, and by the way, the biggest loser in that deal, aside from us, is Israel. Israel is beside themselves over that deal. That deal is a disaster for Israel and a disaster for the Middle East because you're going to have countries now start to arm up and arm up big. It's a disaster. This is the president that we have, and I believe that Hillary Clinton is going to be worse than Obama, okay? I believe she's got less talent than Obama. She has less natural ability than Obama. And I'm not saying he has much, because he doesn't. But he's got an agenda, folks, because he has to have an agenda. Because nobody can be so stupid, and nobody can make deals like this guy's making. Now remember this, Obama's been talking lately. He's been talking about Donald Trump. And normally I wouldn't want to attack the president. I wouldn't want to say bad. I'd rather not. But once he speaks, like Bill Clinton, he started speaking. Now he's been very quiet lately, very quiet. But you know what? He started speaking. Once they attack, then we're allowed. So he's going to go out and campaign for Hillary. By the way, he doesn't like Hillary, and Hillary hates Obama. You know that. She's hated him for years. Obama called Bill Clinton a racist. Bill Clinton hates Obama. And I know that for personal fact. But he hates Obama, hates him. The biggest surprise to me is that he made the speech at the convention for him, honestly, because he hates Obama. Hillary Clinton can't stand Obama. But now Hillary will do anything he says. You know why? She doesn't want to go to jail. Do you notice? The president, all of a sudden, they're going to disassociate themselves from the president. All of a sudden, anything he wants, she'll do. Because it seems like they're protecting her. Let's take the word seems out, okay? They are protecting her from going to jail. And she doesn't want to anger the president by saying, I disagree with you on this. So she agrees with just about every single thing that he wants to do. Yes, sir. No, sir. I think she should start calling him sir. Okay? And that's what's happening, folks. We're going to have a whole different thing. Remember this about Obama. I always thought one thing. I never thought he'd be a good president. I thought he'd be a great, really healer. I thought he'd bring the country together. I thought he was going to be a good cheerleader. He's been a disaster cheerleader. No, I know what she said. It's, a lot of people say that, by the way. But I thought he'd bring the country together. He can't bring the country together. It's not there. He's brought the country and he's divided the country. Wealthy, less than wealthy, white, black. He's absolutely been the great divider. He's been a terrible president. Hillary Clinton will be worse, believe me. She's going to be worse. She's going to be worse. She has a chance of being far worse. I mean, look at the deals. Look at the Libya deal. Look at it. And you know who has that great Libyan oil? You know, it's among the finest oils in the world, right? It's high up. It's sweet. It is one of the fine oils in the world. You know who has it now? ISIS has it. ISIS. Without that raid, you don't have Benghazi. I met with the fiancée of the ambassador who was killed yesterday. She's supporting Trump. A very nice woman. And she tells me stories about Hillary that are unbelievable. Unbelievable. Horrible stories about Hillary. I mean, I said, are you sure you're supporting me? Because I assumed she'd be like on the Democrat side. And she said, no, I'm supporting you. But she told me stories about Hillary that are horrible. That are horrible. And she said the ambassador was like a great guy. And the death, they died, what they went through was supposed to be beyond comprehension, including the other 3 young people. And remember the ads, the phony ads with Hillary? Who do you want answering your phone at 3 o'clock in the morning? She was sleeping. She was sleeping. She was sound asleep, or who knows what she was doing, but she didn't answer the phone. I say she was sleeping. I say she was sleeping because she's got no energy. I say she was sleeping, all right? You know, I say it was a terrible thing. And Benghazi has never really been picked up like it should be picked up because the press has never picked it up. So here's the story, folks. It's an honor that you're here in this kind of heat. I know a number of you went down. I love you all. But I'll tell you what, you're going to be so happy, so proud. You've got to go out on June 7th. You've got to go out. You've got to go out. You've got to vote. Because we're sending a mandate. That's a mandate. We already won. And we're now ahead by millions and millions of votes above the people that came in second. I won't even tell you who it is.
Yes, indeed,
but
sir.
we're ahead by millions of votes. But the more we have and the bigger the mandate we have, the stronger the movement is going to be. And then most importantly, get every one of your friends. And in November, you have to go and vote. I'll be back. I'll be back. But in November, you have to go and vote. Let me just tell you, we're going to start winning again.
Well, folks, that was Donald Trump today, Friday, from his own live feed. He got smart. When his plane flies in, he's got a live feed camera set up, putting it on the internet in high definition live streaming with the audio all set up. So even though CNN, Fox News, ABC, CNN, all of them were boycotting what he was actually saying today. But they were bad-mouthing and bashing him. And that's why we're all turning off to you, ABC, NBC, CBS. You don't have people like me and Mr. Rosebrock on your networks anymore. We bring up uncomfortable issues. Why can't the Los Angeles Times or one of the other local papers in LA bring this issue to the front page? 20,000 homeless veterans sleeping on concrete sidewalks. Guys that stuck their neck out. Not to mention the 58,000 sleeping in the cemeteries who died right alongside of us. And I had 2 die right next to me in Vietnam. They're sleeping in the cemetery. And the survivors are sleeping in concrete like they're worthless, useless, and of no value at all. To me, when you do that to a veteran who put his life, even the veterans I don't like, and there were some guys in Vietnam I didn't get along with in my own unit, and we went fisticuffs a few times. But even they don't deserve to be sleeping homeless. When you've got all this land, we're going to show you an image right now of what this looks like from an aerial satellite view. In case you've never been to Los Angeles and you don't know what Bob Rosebrock here is speaking of, look at this land. This is from the 405. You see the 405 cuts right through the land that Senator Jones and Mr. who?
Miss Arcadia DeBaker.
Arcadia DeBaker. Miss Arcadia donated all this land when it was nothing. There was no Wilshire Boulevard. There was no, and they've taken away what, about 180 acres just putting the 405 through?
Probably about that, yeah.
And Wilshire Boulevard through there. They've taken away this land that was dedicated, and still, what is it, 60% of the housing on the VA there is rat infested and not being used.
Yeah. They've declared it to be historic, therefore you can't touch it. Yeah, the wealth and power next door surrounding Brentwood, the wealthy elite that are in control of this land, and that goes to UCLA, Brentwood schools. They have, it's not just the school, it's the people behind it. They are shameful that they have put themselves above the men and women who have pledged their lives to defend our nation so they could prosper. Now we have war-injured and impoverished veterans living at Skid Row and back alley squalor instead of on this land. And we're going to get it back, though. We're going to, you know, we need help. We need everybody getting involved with this. This is the biggest land fraud scandal in American history. We're talking billions of dollars of property being leased out rent-free. LA City, City of Los Angeles has 12 acres. They don't even have an agreement. They don't pay any rent. They have a public dog park. They have public recreation. It goes on.
Is that what Miss Arcadia wanted the veterans
yeah, I
to have a
think
dog
somewhere
park?
I missed that in the deed. I just
Let's look at that deed. Let's take a look at that deed. People, this is real stuff. We're talking, Robert Rosebrock has come 150 miles to Santa Barbara County because he couldn't get this show done in Los Angeles with 9 million people and dozens of high-tech television studios. He couldn't get this done, what you're looking at. What are we looking at there, Bob?
That's the deed. That's a transcript of the deed.
That's a typewritten one.
Typewritten, yeah. There's a handwritten deed. But this is a deed, and it states, it starts out at the outset of it saying, essentially, about the Congressional Act of 1887, that it had to be incorporated into this deed, that it would be permanently maintained as a national home for disabled soldiers. States 5 times in there. Small child could read this and tell you what it means. And yet if you were to take a small child over and show them what's over there right now and explain to them what the deed said and what it is, and then show them the property, and then go out and show them Skid Row where the homeless veterans are, ask them what should be done. A small child will say, oh my gosh, get that college baseball team and get everything out of there and bring those war-injured homeless veterans home.
Or let's at least put the homeless veterans in remodeled homes there and let them play on the baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Give them some recreation. This is shameful to see homeless veterans like this on the hard concrete steps and sidewalks of downtown Los Angeles, sleeping in tents. And here you see the document. Scroll some more of that document. Here's a document intended by a lady named Arcadia, and Senator Jones donated this land back when it was worthless. The vets helped build it. Civil War vets marched down from San Francisco as part of the Grand Army of the Republic. And I remember a GAR, there used to be a GAR post in my hometown, and I asked my dad, what's that? And my dad said, well, that's the Civil War veterans, but there weren't any left. The sign was still there, but the Civil War veterans had all died off. And it's, to me, shameful that this country can spend $1 trillion or more a year keeping troops in 120 countries where they're not needed or shouldn't even be, and getting more vets injured and killed. So that, I mean, like Kuwait. Kuwait was so wealthy. Why didn't they go hire a mercenary army to get their country back from Saddam? No, they hired us. That's what they did. They bribed our politicians, and you cannot make me believe that there isn't 31 U.S. senators that had secret bank accounts opened in Switzerland by the Kuwaitis that you never heard about. You cannot make me believe that didn't happen. As well as presidential people, people on the president's staff got their pockets lined. So America were the mercenary soldiers sent in to fight Iraq and give the Kuwaitis back their country. And the nuttiest part of it all, I forget her name, forgive me if you're out there watching, because she comes to this area occasionally. Our ambassador over there called the White House and said, we've got information that Saddam is going to invade Kuwait. What should we do? And the answer from the White House staff, chief of staff, was do nothing, shut your mouth, let it happen. All this was set up. All these wars and all our veterans are being used and abused, and then they dump them out on the mean streets of New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and just leave them homeless. Many of them have emotional issues. I'll admit it, I'm 50% rated PTSD. And I went for 20 years saying, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I just want to punch your head. But I don't have any issues. I'm not angry. I just want to punch you because you don't understand. It took a long time for my very patient wife to get me to go to the VA. And they tested me and said, yeah, Wagner, you got post-traumatic stress syndrome. I said, what's that? I'm fine. I'm just fine. No, Wagner, you're not fine. You've got some emotional issues. And it took them years to bring me down, talk me down, so that I didn't go off the deep end occasionally, which if you struck me in the wrong time of day, don't know what you're going to get out of me. And so I can relate to this. Maybe that's part of why I care. Maybe we need to have more veterans who are 50% PTSD holding positions in the VA. In fact, we did have one right here in Santa Maria. Not the current gal that sits in there helping the veterans down there at the government center, but his predecessor her predecessor, who was in that slot, committed suicide. I forget if it was 10 years or 9 years ago. They had PTSD, and he was holding a job, and one day he just said, I've had enough. That was it. Committed suicide. And he had a job. He was getting paid to help other veterans. But maybe we need to have some sympathetic veterans sitting as a register of deeds, so when veterans come in with fraudulent foreclosure documents from a bank that isn't really a bank, somebody will listen to them. They're not listening. They don't care about you. You have no power, veterans, whether you're an American AMVETS or you're VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, or American Legions. You have no power. And you're just pretending you have power by going along with the flow. And every Memorial Day, they let you carry the old guns, bring the flag, salute the dead, but you never go to the heart of the issues. Why do we have people killed in other people's wars? Why did my cousin, Lieutenant Philip Overbeck, die in Vietnam? Totally unnecessary. And I have a photo somewhere with me and his older brother, Overbeck, Chuck Overbeck, and I together. When I found out he was in Vietnam, I took a dangerous trip up the hill, up there towards An Khê, in the mountain pass, through the mountain pass, where they just killed a whole bunch of South Vietnamese and a few Americans just the day before, just to go meet Chuck, who I had known in high school. In our little small town high school, where Chuck went to high school, Sturgeon Bay High, where Lieutenant Philip Overbeck went to high school, Sturgeon Bay High, and I can't show you the picture of that anymore because they tore it down. It's like anything that is old gets torn down. Why do we have homeless veterans sitting there? Why does Mr. Rosebrock have to come 150 miles from his home in Los Angeles to Santa Maria? Because Channel 9, Channel 2, Channel 11 in Los Angeles, Fox, CNN, none of them will give him 10 minutes. The LA Times won't cover this. I think he told you already, it's because powerful people live in Brentwood, in that little enclave right next door, and they don't want more homeless veterans that have issues living right next door. Well, you know, you can put a fence around and protect your expensive Brentwood properties, but give these guys a basketball place to shoot baskets. Give them modern lodgings. It actually would cost us less money if you'd use the VA property properly. Build them housing and take those 20,000 people out of downtown. Then our downtown doesn't look like crap. You don't have people defecating in the bushes and in the streets and on the sidewalks, and then they got to sleep there the next night. This is insanity. And yet we're spending, what, $500 billion to $1 trillion a year keeping George W. Bush's endless wars against terrorists. In my humble opinion, in this Vietnam veterans, the main terrorist is sitting in the White House at the Oval Office. That's your number one, and it was true under Obama. I'm sorry, all you black people who think Obama was the salvation. He didn't close Gitmo like he promised. He didn't. It's still there. He's in office now 7 years. Gitmo's still going full throttle. He didn't end the wars like he did. He started a new one in Mali, or this country called Mali in Central. I'm talking too much. We ought to take a look at the original hand.
I think they're working on that right now.
Hand thing, but
But you're doing great.
I talk too much.
No, you don't. You're saying what needs to be said, William, and I'm so honored to be here. Like I said, to come up here. The LA Times will not touch this story.
Shame on you, LA Times. Shame on you.
KNBC, ABC, go down the list, every one of you. You're right in line with the VA police. Not to report on the VA police, the biggest criminals around. And then they come outside the VA and harass and arrest elderly, peaceful veterans, and yet the crime and the criminals are inside. Go over to Building 500 at the executive director's office and put every one of them in handcuffs and take them out.
Didn't they just spend $250,000 remodeling that before Donald took over?
Probably did. The money goes in there all over the place.
I mean, if they can remodel his headquarters there, where he lives.
Well, he's back in D.C.
Where he has a living space there for the director.
He's got his own private plane, everything. The man lives a life of luxury.
And the veterans are sleeping on concrete sidewalks in downtown.
Well, you know, he came out when he vacated that judgment, and he went down to Skid Row for a photo op. And I was on the homeless count the night before with Rayford Johnson, the legendary decathlon champion. And we went into the community there in West LA to do a head count on homeless. You're not allowed to interact. This is how worthless this deal is. You can only estimate that guy's on the sidewalk, so you write down that he's homeless. Then at the end of it, then they say, well, 10% are probably veteran. And so you get a total count and take 10%. And anyway, McDonald went down to Skid Row for a photo op with CBS, and you're not allowed to interact with any veteran, anybody, or ask them if you're homeless or if you're even a veteran. On video, on CBS News, goes to this guy and says, "Hi, are you a veteran?" The guy says, "Yeah." Already broke the rule right there. And he says, "Where did you serve?" And the homeless person said, "Special Forces." McDonald said, "So did I." Well, we found out later the Special Forces heard that and went after him in a big way, and they said, "Well, I misspoke." No, you lied, Mr. McDonald. You've lied to me. You know it, even in an email. You lie. Everything you do is a lie. And you've violated your oath of office as a secretary, your oath as a cadet at West Point, not to lie, cheat, or steal, and yet that's all you do. That's the only people you're aligned with, just a bunch of thugs. And it's time to step down. And by the way, I just read today where a senator from Louisiana, I think it's Vitter, called for his resignation. Many are calling for his resignation. We've been calling for his resignation for a long, long time. He's behind all of this harassment on these flag issues. The man has to go. He's an embarrassment, and he's part of the Obama administration there that